So I just want to understand what were the pros which you liked in consulting and why you fell out of love with it.
I really enjoyed that 1.5 year, I would say. But then comes the downsides of consulting.
I'm not like asking for you the exact numbers, but how does the percentage growth or salary brackets look like?
I think 3.5 times or something.
Welcome to a new podcast.
Today we are doing something unique. We are delving into the corporate careers of our guests and doing kind of a repositioning for our audience in this podcast. And today we have a very special guest whose name is Debarshi Bagchi. He is an SP German alumnus, and his corporate experience has basically navigated from consulting to business manager operations in Uber. And now he has made a very recent switch to product management. So, having a lot of experience under his armpit, it will be a really interesting conversation with him. So, thank you, Debarshi, for joining this call.
Glad to be here.
So, Debarshi, just to kick things off, right? Can you just describe your roles and responsibilities currently in Uber and what a typical day looks like?
So currently the role that I am in is product operations manager. Entirely rollout, GTM, etc. is kind of controlled by ProdOps. And also on the upstream side, if you look at that, the business inputs gathering, interaction with operations team, finding out what products they need, doing the prioritization and creating a charter and a vision for a 2 year of where you want to be with the product. That kind of lies jointly with both product ops and product manager. I think you asked what a typical day looks like.
Mhm.
Coming from operations, we do not really have a day-to-day focus over here. Your focus is always on what you're delivering at the end of the half. And you break that down into different tasks week on week and where you are against those. That's how your typical week works like.
And you used a lot of acronyms in between as well, Debarshi. So I'm assuming that this would become technical at some point. And you also mentioned you work with different teams, right? So a lot of stakeholder management is also involved in the product management domain.
It's very heavy on stakeholder management. So
Okay.
typically in the product operations role at Uber, basically connecting with all the operations team is your responsibility. Looking at whatever they want to, prioritize, whatever they are thinking of in the short term or long term about their products. And you need to take them into confidence before launching anything because there might be a big pushback. So there are nuances that you need to get used to over time. But yeah, it is very heavy on stakeholder management.
So sometimes we feel that product management also requires a lot of technical skills. So coding and also understanding the nuances of making a product, right? But having a non-technical background as someone, so how can that person basically aim for a product management role? So is it inevitable that technical things will come under the ambit when he gets into product management, or as a non-technical person, he can also navigate his way through?
From my limited experience, there are projects which can be very technical.
Right.
There can be projects in which you don't need to handle the technical part as much. The engineering team kind of is taking care of everything. Yeah, you do need to understand. That is very important that you know how it works. But
Hmm.
getting into the details, like understanding what code has gone in there, is not always in your ambit. But having said that, I think I've heard that the technical product manager roles that Amazon offers are actually very technical, and you need to understand a lot of things which might not be needed for the other product manager role that Amazon has.
Understood. In my experience as well, I also worked in Airtel for a bit, and there I had a product management profile. So I understood that whenever you give like the coding task to someone and they give the effort estimates, then if you don't know the technical things behind it, then any effort estimates can come, right? And it becomes difficult to manage the deadlines because finally you have to go to the business team to launch a product.
It also depends on how collaborative the engineering manager is, how collaborative
Hmm.
the team is. Like it depends on person to person, honestly.
Exactly, makes sense. And Devarshi, I also saw when I was going through a profile that you had worked before this in the senior manager business operations profile. So
Yeah.
first of all, I want to understand what this designation entailed and also what motivated your switch into product. Mhm.
So just a brief background, I started my journey after MBA with EY. I was there
Okay.
for 3.5 years. I was working across industries like cement, FMCG, and all this. After that, I switched to GEP, but I think
Hmm.
I kind of fell out of love with consulting. Once you're into consulting and you have spent 4 or 5 years,
Hmm.
getting out of consulting, you can only get maybe 3, 4 kind of roles, right? Typically, a CEO team, strategy team in some org. Other consulting firms obviously are open. Or
Okay.
else you can go get the role that you want, something like even a product management at a startup, maybe
Hmm.
an established company where you don't have any good reference. It is very unlikely that you will get a product management role straight out of college. I had applied at Uber even 2 3 times before that. I think never got a shortlist or anything. So
Hmm.
this role was essentially in the driver experience team, right? Which is your North Star is essentially improving driver satisfaction and improving driver engagement, right? That is the North Star,
Hmm.
right? You want your drivers to drive more with you and you want them to be happy.
Since we delved so much deep into these problems, one more thing which riders basically face is that they say that okay, commissions of the trip has gone up, right? And then drivers basically ask the riders to pay it directly to them, right, and not go through the app. So
Yeah.
is that something which Uber is has recognized and actively trying to solve about the commission problem?
So it is
Okay.
something that Uber is trying to solve. But the thing is that what drivers don't want to understand or don't tend to understand is that at the end of the day, it's a business. If Uber is not making any money, this will shut down after some time. On the driver's side, I would say it's kind of unfair on them also, because especially like, imagine you started driving in 2016
Hmm.
or 2015, like you got used to earnings of maybe 80,000 in a month. Now if that comes down to 40,000 or 50,000 after 5 years, it is
Hmm.
tough, right?
Now I was going to come to the point when you mentioned about the consulting experience that you stayed there for 4 to 5 years, right? And then you said it fell out of love of consulting. So I would assume that there was ups and downs because you stayed also for some time and then you realized that okay, I have to switch now. So I just want to understand what were the pros which you liked in consulting and why you fell out of love.
I think the pros definitely would be learning opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty good learning, and I really enjoyed that 1.5 year, I would say. But then comes the downsides of consulting. Your senior manager or director, they have come at a position in their life where they just want to focus on one industry, right? Which is fair to them. But it is a conflict of interest for me and the partner because he wants to retain me. If you look at me, I was just a consultant in a second year or third year.
Mm.
Then eventually, what would have happened was my only exit opportunity would be another consulting company or in the cement industry, nowhere else. So I shifted from that team to another team. I did a project in the FMCG space. Again, you don't have the option of moving around. Sometimes you just get lucky, but sometimes it doesn't.
Interesting thing which you mentioned was that you were getting 1 year, 1.5 year projects, right? So, what do you think that if a person is in consulting, till what time he or she can become stereotyped if they are doing just one kind of projects, and then it becomes difficult for them to basically get a generic role or get into implementation industry like FMCG?
Depends on the kind of projects you're doing.
Hmm.
So there are projects where you stay till the implementation and you actually do the implementation part. The reason I said that was very good learning was because we had created the strategy for 6 months, we had implemented it, we had got the results and done everything. After that, the project ended. So that is why it was a very good learning. But
Hmm.
if I look at the project that I did after that, it was again that like 6 months of some strategy and randomly the project scope completely changed. As a partner, you don't say no to that, right?
Makes
So
sense.
that's why.
Now you mentioned that after 1 year in GP, you realize that okay, now the time has come to switch. Now, people think that 1 year is a very little time to make the switch, right? And it reflects negatively on your CV as well.
Yeah.
So, do you have any problem in switching? And what was your mindset when you were switching from GP at that?
It might be taken negatively,
Hmm.
but I thought that there are enough people who have done that. Like, suppose whatever the roles and responsibilities you understood before joining, it did not turn out to be the same thing, or you just didn't enjoy. It's okay, right? Like, you don't know everything beforehand. So I thought maybe it might be a challenge, but it wasn't, honestly.
And what is the process of switching? Like, is it through LinkedIn? Is it through mutual references?
The GP one actually, the HR had reached out to me only. I don't remember exactly. Uber, I remember it was one of my friends who had referred. And I think from my experience of both referring and getting referred here and there, referral works the best.
Got it. And then, Devashi, also want to understand about the piece of work-life balance, right? So, in consulting is very negatively annotated to bad work-life balance, and you're not able to manage a person setting. So, is it different if you go to industry, or is it the same?
It gets worse as you grow up. So there was a time when there was a 3 month period where I was working on two projects. I remember this was in the very first year of consulting only. So I think back to back in 2, 3 months only, maybe 1 or 2 weekends I might have not worked. Otherwise, every weekend we used to work. But on the flip side, I would say there were times when it was pretty relaxed also. But at the same time, when I remember, I don't think the senior manager or director on my project had that luxury, right?
Got it. I think you talked about this, like more work comes, but also it comes with more incentives, right? I'm not like asking for the exact numbers, but how does the percentage growth or salary brackets look like?
I think 3.5 times or something
Yeah.
compared to when I started working. But in terms of CTC, I think it has increased a lot, especially after I joined Uber, because Uber gives you a lot of stock options. The thing is that you need to understand difference between RSUs and ESOPs, right? ESOPs might look very lucrative, but I don't know if 30 lakhs of ESOPs is equivalent to 30 lakhs of RSUs, right?
Right.
Because Uber is a listed company.
Hmm.
If Uber gives you, suppose, stock worth 1 lakh rupees in a year, but if you want to treat it as cash or salary in hand, you can just sell that stock that day only and just encash it, right?
For
So
stock
that
options, there's no lock-in period, right?
it differs across companies again. At Uber, I would say it is one of the best. Suppose you join Uber, they give you suppose 100 rupees, right? 100 rupees of stocks you get, it gets equally vested over 4 years. Either you choose to
That's
sell
really
it or
cool.
not, that is your call.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And that's a very flexible model, so as to say. But awesome. I think Debarshi have exhausted all the questions. And thank you so much for taking so much time and answering all the questions for us. So yeah, I will let you go and hope you enjoyed this conversation.
Sure, sure. I enjoyed it a lot. Thanks, Arnav, I think.
Thanks, Debarshi.